Welcome back to Get a Grip on Lighting. On today's show, we have Ann Kustner of AKLD Lighting Design and Rachel Fitzgerald of Stantec. And this is in reference to their recent interview with Al Usinski of Inside Lighting, where they discussed fixture lifespans as a design priority, which we welcome here on Get a Grip on Lighting. Before we get into it, you got to get a grip on cable, Greg. GripLockSystems.com, buddy. Check them out.
Hey, that's right. Suspension solutions that are designed to save time, reduce labor, and keep projects on schedule. Where it stops, it locks with a grip lock cable gripper. It's a unique self-locking, completely adjustable device. Lock in everything you need to. You don't need that jack chain. You don't need that threaded rod. Use grip lock.
Jack Chain is for losers. Go to griplocksystems.com, check them out. Of course, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, our convention is coming up September 22nd to 24th. There's still room for a few of you stragglers out there that have light bulbs in a warehouse. That's right. You have light bulbs in a warehouse? You sell them over the counter, on the phone, on the internet, on Amazon, wherever you sell them. Nailed is your association, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Rachel and Ann, Rachel, welcome back to Get a Grip on Lighting. And Ann, welcome to Get a Grip on Lighting.
Well, thank you.
We're going to jump right
Yes,
into
thank
it.
you for having us.
No problem. Right to repair and lighting. Lighting, in my experience, I've been in the game 25 years now, since 26 years, and lighting is the OG, original right to repair industry. You're going back to Edison, and we were always able to repair our light fixtures. We didn't have to change light fixtures every time there was a problem with a light bulb or a ballast. We simply went to a lighting distributor, a member of NAILD perhaps, and purchased what we need. Why has this changed so drastically, Rachel, in recent years?
Yeah, I think, the mainstream adoption and invention of the LED has been phenomenal. I mean, it's been game changing for the lighting industry. I don't think anybody can dispute that. And as a lighting designer, it gives us so many more tools in our toolbox to be able to create with. But now we've started to see these complications of we have projects that are 5, 8, 10 years old that were some of the not even necessarily early, but adopters of LED technology 5 to 10 years ago that are starting to see mass failures. And just as you said, you can't just run to Home Depot or your corner distributor and grab a replacement part off the shelf and make that system work like we've done for decades, a century, with some of our prior technology. And so it's really becoming a holistic question of how are facilities managers and owners going to maintain their LED systems long term?
And so, as lighting distributors, we sell replacement lighting components, right?
Mhm.
That's what we do. And to us, this seems very natural that we would service fixtures with replacement parts downstream. When did it become a lighting design issue? And like, how long ago before you started to hear lighting designers saying to themselves, you know what, we got to start designing for this because this is not a natural outcome of down the road for our LED projects.
Well, it all starts when your clients come back, as Rachel said, years later and say, oh, the fixtures that you specified are failing, and my electrician can't figure it out. He's gone to his distributor, the distributor's gone to the manufacturer, and they come back to us as the resource of last resort, so to speak. And so as lighting designers, Rachel and I came together with others about a year and a half ago going, wait a second, like this is supposed to be something sustainable. And there's nothing sustainable about throwing a fixture away. And so we do all these well building, LEED, living building challenge, energy efficient, sustainable projects. But now they could recycle everything into that fixture, but now they're throwing it away. And so that's where we have kind of come together and trying to find manufacturers that are making maintainable products. So that's where we're at today. I will tell you, I reached out to out of the Chicago area. I've reached out to 5 of our largest repping agencies, and I had them put together all the manufacturers that are specifically for downlights that are making maintainable fixtures. And out of all of them, there were fewer than 20. I would say it's close to 12 manufacturers that make maintainable fixtures.
And when you say maintainable, like let's take the recess can example, what do you mean specifically that makes it maintainable, or what parts?
Now, good question. People want a light bulb and a ballast or driver. They want to be able, think about a good old fashioned 2x4 fluorescent. People want to be able to change, the light source and the ballast or driver. So what we're finding is drivers are one thing and they're out there, but what we're finding too, and Rachel's had experience with this in living color, is fixture shifting color over time. And so you need to change the LED out, and they're not making them maintainable. And if you look at the life of a typical fixture, it's 50,000 hours. And if you run that 24/7, like in an airport or in a hotel, that's not even 6 years.
Right. And when you look at these maintainable products, I've looked at them myself. What I think might be where they have a module, they have an external driver, they have the housing, right? You have 3 different pieces that you can replace. And cost-wise, double, maybe triple, what you could get for a throwaway fixture. Is that still where we're at, or are you seeing other ways?
I think cost is definitely a component of it. And as Ann mentioned, a huge part of it is also contractors that know enough about some of that specification level grade product to get the phone calls to go do a repair job that's not your big dollar ground up new construction, and go support a client and actually know how to order and replace those replaceable components. And to add to that, it goes back to, I think part of what Ann and I have been dealing with is clients who thought these LEDs were going to last a lifetime, or maybe not a lifetime, but at least a 10-year lease duration. And so they haven't budgeted for replacement. They haven't budgeted for repair. So they're going, this is unexpected and I don't have the money allocated for this. Whereas back when it was a fluorescent system, everybody knew you had to schedule and budget to do batch relamping, batch ballast replacement, and facilities managers, owners, clients, they're not accounting for that today. So there's a huge piece of this that's also just education, that LEDs aren't going to last forever. You've got to put the investment in to then replace those parts and pieces and components to keep the systems operational.
The betrayal to our clients is enormous. And that goes for everybody in the industry. Second of all, if you've ever filed a warranty claim with a manufacturer and you've seen how difficult it is for them to ship a box of drivers to you or whatever, you see what the role of distribution is in the marketplace and the ability to supply replacement components. And I'm very suspect of the manufacturer's ability to service fixtures 5 or 10 years down the road. I don't think they'll have that capability. They may claim it now in their paperwork that the fixture is serviceable, but we don't know what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years. So I think the lighting industry really needs to take a step back and say to itself, when did we stop drinking the Kool-Aid on the LEDs last forever thing? And have our clients actually, are they still under that impression? Particularly the accountants you mentioned that use 25-year amortization actuarial tables to judge maintenance costs moving forward. They're using fluorescent system to predict the cost of maintenance. They're not using, full fixture replacement every 3 to 7 years. You mentioned airports and hotels, but let's not forget about parking garages that are in every high-rise multi-residential building out there. Why are these fixtures purpose-built? Why are we designing? Why not put tube-based fixtures into parking garage egress stairwells? And why are we still forcing these unrepairable solutions onto our customers? I see it everywhere.
Well, it's interesting, and that's an excellent point. And we've been talking to more and more manufacturers, and it's very interesting because the manufacturers that are building maintainable fixtures think that everybody is building maintainable fixtures. And one of the things that we are proposing is to actually do an upfront specification. So actually putting the board, the LED board, the light module that goes into these downlights, and putting them as another line item, and ordering the attic stock up front, because as you said, in 5 to 10 years, they might have a new gizmo that, oh, we decided to, we've this is new and improved. We're not making that part anymore, and we're out of the attic stock that we did have in our factory for that. So we're looking actually at having them purchase things up front, so we know that it works with the fixtures. And we're actually looking at more of a 50%. I'm looking at more of a 50% attic stock, which I would have said 5% in years past. But as we all know, it's going to be 5 or 10 years before they need this. And we know, because of historically, people are just changing and looking forward. They're not looking backwards and making something backwards compatible. So, and I think somebody said it beautifully that I never thought about, is that, these are electronics. We're in the era of, the age of electronics, and it's kind of flipped over from traditional lighting. Electronics is always changing, and so the people that are making these products are thinking like radios and televisions and iPhones. They're not thinking of lighting fixtures. It's a different breed. And so, to your point, we need to educate not only our clients, but we are trying to work with manufacturers to make it more aware that we need these items.
And Rachel, I don't know if you can answer this, or Ann, but we talked about recessed cans. How about 2x2s and 2x4s? Like tubes obviously make sense. I can find a fixture with an acrylic lens still. I can maybe find one with a parabolic. Maybe a center basket if I'm lucky, but not really. What are they doing on 2x2s and 2x4s that you can make field serviceable in the future? Have you seen anything yet?
Yeah. I think it's the exact same problem of, part of what Ann and I have discussed is trying to encourage and partner with manufacturers to provide part numbers. So when we're putting together a luminaire schedule, we can add a column for replacement parts, and we can list the board, we can list the driver, we can list the lens. And then as part of the O&M materials, a client can go in and call a manufacturer and say, okay, I need to order this part and that part to maintain and work and service my luminaire. I think it's the exact same problem as the downlights of both of those modules and components, being the LED piece and the driver piece, need to be replaceable, accessible, and something that you can order and replace. And then again, it's got to be thought of in more of a batch scenario, because we've seen it, that there is color shift, there's degradation, there's change. And so you can't just relamp one and have it sitting next to a luminaire that you didn't relamp. They're gonna look different. And we have had some conversations about, maybe the TLEDs weren't the worst thing in terms of it's easy to maintain, but then there's different struggles with those. The flicker is horrible. I mean, we've tested some and a lot of them say flicker free, but when you test them, there's flicker, and they're not lasting to their full lifespan either, because those components are degrading. So I don't know what the answer is in that scenario, other than, as Ann said, we're really trying to have conversations with manufacturers to encourage part numbers and serviceability and making that easy to find and work with. Yet one of the interesting stories I like to share is I have a newer home, and we bought it new from a track build manufacturer. Before we even moved in, I took one of the downlights, which is one of the surface mounted puck style downlights these days,
Mm-hmm.
off the ceiling. It's got a QR code on the back. Scan the QR code link doesn't work.
Of course.
Link is broken.
Of course it is.
And so, I have neighbors who now 2 years in, they're having mass failures in those downlights and can't find the product, can't replace it, don't know how to match it. So now they're having to go through and room by room replace all of the downlights
Yep.
2 years in.
And they're going to have to replace them again. And the 50,000 hour lifespans, this is all nonsense. My experience is that LEDs last between 3 and 7 years. and how, and you were mentioning how we've transitioned our industry from manufacturing in the U.S. critical infrastructure for our lighting to manufacturing in China consumer electronics for our industry. And this is a big shift in mentality. I think I have the answer, and maybe I'll throw it over to Ann to see what you think. I think the answer is commoditization of form factors and voltages and wattages and stuff like that. So in the past, the industry would make, say, ceramic metal halide, and it would be an M159 ballast, and it would have this socket on it, PG13 socket, and then GE, Sylvania, and Phillips would all make that lamp, and they'd all make that ballast to the same specifications, the same size, form factor of the ballast, screw holes in the back or screw holes on the side or whatever. But there was standards, there was commoditization. Commoditization lowers prices of replacement parts, but keeps original fixtures expensive. And we've done the opposite thing now. We've made light fixtures really, really cheap and rebateable with the utility. So you can get a rebate on this cheap piece of crap that's basically e-waste. And but the long-term costs of lighting are pushed into the future on the clients. And instead of an upfront cost for a repairable fixture, fixture costs are lower than ever. If you like a 2x4, you can buy on the street in Toronto for 30 Canadian dollars. That's $20. You couldn't buy a fluorescent fixture for that price. So we've taken the cost, we've cheapened the initial product in, and we've abandoned commoditization. We've turned it into consumer electronics, and we've pushed all the costs onto the consumer in the future in the form of hassles and e-waste and garbage and all this sort of stuff. This is a major trap we have to get out of.
Well, and it's interesting because, and I can't remember, Rachel, how many years ago. I want to say it's 20, but it could have been like 2012. But anyhow, there is, in Europe, they started a Zaga consortium to do just that, to give us the medium base, so to speak, of an LED disc. And at that time, many of the manufacturers in the United States said, you know what, this is a new source. There's a new form factor. We want to play with it. We want to try it. We want to, have our unique, cutting edge solution to, a downlight or a linear. And so we've gone like the kind of the horse has left the barn, and they were clumsy. And so, a lot of these manufacturers like, oh, but that, the size of them, it's klutzy. How can we fit those in our fixtures? Everybody wants sleek, sexy, smaller. And so that has left it in a way the building. But I think to your point is it's an opportunity for a manufacturer out there to maybe relook at that and say, aha, because all of the things that Rachel and I have been talking about is specifically with the unique manufacturer, right? We go with manufacturer A, but we have to use that LED chip and source and not go to a distributor to be able to find it because it is not, generic like that. And we have so much throwaway technology. A friend in the lighting industry said he was talking to an architect and said, oh, what kind of fixtures did you use in your new school? And he said, flat panel LED 2x2s. And my friend said, you realize when they go out, they're thrown away. And the architect had no idea. So it is an education. We have to tell people, yes, you'll be able to maintain this. No, you won't be able to maintain this. And actually, we're now able to hold our specs. We will be able to hold our specs more when we can tell a client, yes, it's a little more expensive up front, but you'll be able to maintain this and repair this down the road.
What is it going to take to get a manufacturer to do that? Because that's what it comes down to is somebody's got to step up and do it. But then there's a cost, and I guess it's going to take them to say that, yes, we'll buy, and the end user will buy. But will they? And how do we get that? It's got to be, I don't know how we're going to get there.
Ann and I have been having a lot of conversations with different manufacturers, and one of the things I've learned is there are a lot of manufacturers doing the right things. They're focusing on that circular economy. They're looking at the sustainability in more of a bigger picture. And yeah, to some degree, they're doing it with the knowledge that they're going to make less in return on that. In terms of, them selling a board is going to return them a lot less money than selling a new fixture. And so there are some manufacturers that are doing it. Is it available in every product type? No. Will it be? High in the sky? Probably not, but that would be great. Um, but I think the hope is to push more and more manufacturers to provide more standard product with those parts and pieces that can be maintained and serviceable long term. And I think there's manufacturers that are and will step up to, doing that and to providing those parts and pieces because they see the bigger picture of the circular economy and the sustainability and that they're getting long-term clients that'll hopefully be repeat clients for them that want to use their product in their next project because they know they'll last long and they maintain them and stand behind it.
But we're open to ideas because, as you said, I mean, anybody's ideas. We're trying to find, like, what is that need? What are people going to clamor to the manufacturers, specifiers, saying, we need this. Will you provide this? One of the things that we're looking at, LEED version 5 just came out on sustainability, and it was like, darn it, we missed an opportunity in there. But I was talking with a sustainability expert the other day, and he said, well, you could write it in as an innovation point. Like, we have maintainable fixtures on this project. So we're looking of ways to drive a need so that the manufacturers will see, this is appealing. And of course, and we appreciate being on a program like this because we're trying to reach all people to realize that they can ask the questions, that they can say, we need this. So we're trying to drive that need so manufacturers listen.
I think that the problem that you're trying to address as a lighting designer and asking manufacturers, like, isn't this what NEMA and ANSI did? Like the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, and I know I'm calling someone else out, Greg. Now I'm in trouble again. But in the past, they would govern this, and the manufacturers would obey the standards of the industry. And instead of them embarking on their own sustainability crusade, people had to make an F32 T8 841K, 4100 Kelvin, 48 inches in length with two G13 medium bipin sockets on it. The ballast that everybody made had exactly the same wiring diagram down to the colors of the wires, the size of the screw holes, everything. That wasn't made up by a manufacturer. That was dictated to them by either NEMA or ANSI or one of those organizations. And I feel like the lighting industry has been led down the garden path by, LEED and all these demands placed upon us by organizations that know nothing about lighting, including DLC, that, our manufacturer, our Design Lights Consortium. They're telling us how to design lights. And I think that we need better leadership in the lighting industry from our existing organizations. They still exist. They existed pre-LED. They exist today. And those organizations, IES, NEMA, ANSI, whoever those people are out there, you guys need to start setting standards for manufacturers. Manufacturers are just going to do whatever they want, whatever they're going to follow the revenue like any other business. We need standards, and if the government has to get involved, then the government has to get involved. But lighting is critical infrastructure, Rachel. It's not consumer electronics. It should not be treated as such.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what Ann and I have been advocating for do you end up with a logo of a stamp of one of those agencies that are saying, yes, this is a product that complies and has replaceable components and they're going to be held accountable to support that product 10, 15 years into the future with replaceability and serviceability. And at the same time, Ann and I, we're lighting designers.
Yes.
We want all these awesome new products and inventions, and we want the manufacturers to be able to create unique product that sets them apart and provides a niche need. And those two things are kind of mutually exclusive, at least today. But I think that's part of the question is, do they have to be in terms of, can we still drive innovation and product development and allow manufacturers that creativity of form factor, yet still also have accountability for if you're going to have that seal of approval on your product, you've got to stand behind it that the parts and pieces are serviceable and maintainable.
I'll tell you what's happening in the legacy lamp market, because I sell a lot of CFLs and fluorescent tubes and metal halides. It's very easy to cross brands in CFLs. You can give someone a 26 watt triple twin tube that's 830K in 15 different brands, and it works in their socket. I think we have to maybe work incrementally. And if the high end designed applications, Greg, are, maybe those clients in the hotel lobby, they're just going to have to redo their lobby in 10 years if they want to do that cutting edge design. But please, in our regular commercial offices, in our parking garages, where the vast majority of schools, where the vast majority of light fixtures reside, like, can we go back to something that doesn't flicker and is replaceable? You know what I mean? Like, they can change the light bulb. It already exists. The technology's there. Can we not adopt it into those areas? That's my frustration. I'm not worried about the hotel lobby at the Ritz-Carlton. Like, they can do whatever they want. But the local school board has seriously limited funds.
Yeah, and that's the concern, and that's what has sparked the fire under Ann and I and the co-presenters we've been speaking with in the past year has been this issue of there is so much stock of lighting that just can't be maintained, and a lot of those institutional clients and schools and those things, they can't afford to just rip everything out and throw it in the landfill every 5 years. It's just not, it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. It doesn't work. They can't budget for it. So I think something has to change. And I think a huge part of it is just building awareness and education. Education, just like Ann said, flat panels aren't maintainable. They're landfill throwaway product. And maybe that's what a project needs to hit its first cost budget. But then the client needs to be educated enough to know that that first cost budget's going to last you 3 years.
Yeah.
And now you need to budget for replacement. And so I think it's both sides. It's advancing the industry, it's partnering with manufacturers, it's trying to go back to agencies or associations with some standards, but it's also a huge piece of it's just education. Educating clients, educating, contractors to help educate clients. It's educating all sides of it so that there's more awareness on what people are buying and what they're getting and how they need to maintain it long term.
Greg, we thank Ann and Rachel for being guests. We're coming up tight on time here, so we got to close it off because I think Rachel's got a presentation, but I'm going to say something. You know what's interesting, Greg? All these groups, LEED, DLC, all this kind of stuff, they never asked the people that sell replacement lighting components what they thought. Never. It has never happened.
Right.
We have been managing the National Association of Independent Lighting Distributors, lighting distributing specialists, since 2019, and we've never received a letter from any of these organizations asking for our feedback. And on top of that, we've contacted these organizations, particularly you, DLC, many times, and you refuse to acknowledge our contact, read our reports that we wrote for you, everything on all the problems that we have in the lighting industry. So you may want to consider talking to the National Association of people who sell replacement lighting components before you make decisions on sustainability and right to repair and all this other stuff. You every time we talk to you guys, Greg, they just slough us off. Tell us we don't know what we're talking about. Meanwhile, we're the ones that sell replacement lighting components. If you sell replacement lighting components, you should join NAILD, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Also, don't be a loser, Greg. Go to gripblocksystems.com right now.
That's right. And we talked about sustainability. That's something that you can reuse over and over too. Grip block systems are great. I put a fluorescent high bay in, then I did an LED high bay. I didn't change the kit. Still a cable grip block.
Go to gripblocksystems.com, and all you listeners out there, thank you. And if you have light bulbs in a warehouse, we expect you to join us. Bye for now.